Karen's first scream wasn't from the HOA office. It was from her bathroom at 6 a.m., so loud it rattled windows and sent neighbors scrambling to their blinds. By the time they peeked out, Karen was in her driveway in her bathrobe, clutching fistfuls of blonde hair like evidence in a crime scene, shouting about sabotage. Who was she blaming? Me. The same guy who had warned her 100 times to stay out of my lake. And let me set the record straight right now. It's not a lake, not the kind you'd see on postcards with swans and picnic blankets. It's a chemical pit left behind by an old factory, a fenced-off hazard zone plastered with giant yellow warning signs that scream, "Danger, hazardous water, no swimming." Not even ducks land there. But did that stop Karen? Of course not. To her, rules were optional, reality was negotiable, and her HOA badge was a golden key to anywhere she pleased. Karen renamed my toxic backyard swamp the Community Wellness Lagoon. She strutted down the street in a ridiculous straw hat, dollar store sunglasses, dragging a pink flamingo float behind her, and sometimes a box of wine under her arm. She would wade into that chemical soup, wave at me like she was shooting a commercial for delusion, and yell, "You don't own nature, Bob!" She always called me Bob, though my name is nothing close to Bob. The first time I confronted her, she clutched that flamingo like a lifeline and told me the HOA bylaws gave her unrestricted access to community resources. I told her the only thing unrestricted was her ignorance. She just smiled, blew through a cheap plastic whistle, and shouted, "You'll thank me when this lake raises property values." Nothing says luxury quite like radioactive algae and toxic fumes. I filed complaints. I sent inspection reports straight from the state. I called City Hall until my phone minutes nearly expired. But Karen waved it all away, telling anyone who listened that government fear tactics couldn't touch the healing power of nature. And to prove it, she started inviting her fellow HOA board members for lake therapy sessions. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays became official spa days in my yard. Imagine looking out your kitchen window and seeing a parade of neighbors dragging towels, folding chairs, and coolers through your property like it was Daytona Beach. They'd slather on sunscreen, blast music from tinny Bluetooth speakers, and act like I was their unpaid lifeguard. Karen called herself lake director and carried a whistle everywhere. I stood with my arms crossed, warning them they'd regret it. Karen smirked, dipped her toes into the green sludge, and said, "The only regret here is your lack of community spirit, Bob." And for a little while, they actually believed her. Karen said the tingling on their skin was deep cleansing. When one guy started coughing like he'd swallowed razor blades, she called it detox. Another woman's arm broke out in blotchy red patches. Karen told her to balance her energy by drinking more lake water. I almost passed out from laughing when she said it. I kept sending reports, filing complaints, and waving hazard papers in their faces, but the city moved slower than a snail in molasses. Meanwhile, my yard looked like a deranged beach party from hell. Karen floated on her flamingo, box of Chardonnay in hand, declaring the lake was natural medicine, right as her float started deflating under her. The warning signs were everywhere. Her wiggy blonde curls looked thinner each week. She tried hiding it with bigger hats and cheap extensions, but every time she climbed out of the water, the chemical sludge seemed to take more hair than she had left on her head. Neighbors noticed. They noticed the rashes, the coughing fits, and they definitely noticed Karen's hair swirling down the storm drains. By the third week, her hairline looked like it was trying to escape her skull. Bald patches grew like crop circles, and when she tried to fix it with a home perm kit, the result was fried hay stacked on her scalp. Every morning, the neighborhood was treated to her bathroom screams echoing down the street. But did she admit the truth? No. She marched to my porch one Saturday morning, shaking with rage, clutching a fistful of hair, and accused me of chemical warfare. "Bob!" she screeched, wig slipping halfway off. "You dumped hair remover into the lake to destroy me. You've ruined my image, my reputation, my beauty." I held up the same stack of hazard reports I'd shown her 100 times. "This lake was already toxic before you turned it into your day spa. I warned you. You ignored it. That's on you." Of course, she didn't accept reality. Karen never did. Instead, she called me a domestic terrorist and rallied her HOA flock for a mock trial. Picture it. The clubhouse full of half-bald, rash-covered neighbors trying to look serious, while Karen strutted in with a crooked wig, blowing her whistle like Judge Judy on spring break. She printed flyers with my face labeled Lake Villain and handed them out like campaign posters. She shouted that I had poisoned her, poisoned the lake, poisoned the entire community, and some of them, still in denial, believed her. But her humiliation was only just beginning, because the state wasn't about to let the HOA clown show rewrite decades of environmental evidence. And that's where part 2 of this saga takes a turn Karen never saw coming. Karen's humiliation didn't end at the lake. By the next morning, photos of her sprinting across the HOA park, clutching her head, had already spread through the neighborhood group chat. No one knew who took them, but the sight of the once arrogant woman running barefoot, screaming, with half her hair gone, was enough to spark laughter in every household. She tried to deny it was her, but the leopard print robe gave her away instantly. The HOA board, already tired of Karen's constant demands and harassment, called an emergency meeting. She stormed in, still wearing a wig she had bought overnight, furious and desperate to shift the blame. "This man created a health hazard," she shouted, pointing directly at me. But the board wasn't buying it. They reminded her that she had trespassed, ignored warning signs, and even invited neighbors to join her in what she described as a secret wellness lagoon. Her credibility crumbled in seconds. One board member pulled out their phone and showed video evidence of her pushing past my locked gate and waving her friends toward the lake as if she owned the place. The room fell silent except for the sound of Karen huffing and shaking with rage. For the first time, she was the one being silenced, not me. Within a week, the HOA had issued her a formal notice. She was banned from serving on the board, fined for trespassing, and required to pay for cleanup costs. She refused, of course, threatening to sue everyone in sight, but no one took her seriously anymore. What stung her the most wasn't the fine. It was the way neighbors who once tolerated her stopped returning her calls. People whispered when she walked by. Kids giggled when they saw her wig slip slightly in the wind. She had become the very thing she feared most, a laughingstock. I didn't even need to lift a finger for justice to play out. Karma had done the work for me, and it was thorough. Months later, Karen's house went up for sale. Rumors spread that she couldn't handle the embarrassment or the constant side eyes from the community she once ruled over. When the moving truck finally pulled away, the street felt lighter, calmer, almost free. Standing at my porch, I watched it all unfold with a quiet smile. The toxic lake had taken her pride, the neighborhood had taken her power, and fate had taken her away for good.